She never planned to fall asleep on a stranger's shoulder. But when the plane finally landed and she opened her eyes, the woman who had spent years buried in boardrooms and skyscrapers found herself in tears. Not out of embarrassment, but because of what that single father beside her had quietly done while she slept. This isn't just a story about an awkward flight. It's a reminder that small acts of kindness can change lives, soften hearts, and remind us that humanity still exists where we least expect it. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if stories like this inspire you. You're watching HOA Chronicles, where real stories remind us that compassion is still alive in this world. It was a frosty morning at Chicago O'Hare Airport. Flight 292 to Los Angeles was boarding, and in seat 14B sat Evelyn Carter, a 38-year-old CEO of a booming tech startup. Her assistant had booked her a last-minute flight after an exhausting week filled with investor meetings and endless presentations. She was drained, the kind of fatigue that coffee couldn't cure. Wearing her signature navy suit, she stayed glued to her phone, emails, contracts, financial reports. Her entire existence ran through that glowing screen. To Evelyn, time meant profit, and small talk was just a distraction. As passengers filed in, she barely lifted her eyes. She only hoped her seatmate would be quiet. Then came seat 14A, a man in his mid-30s, warm brown eyes, light stubble, and holding the tiny hand of a little girl no older than 6. She had curly hair tied into pigtails and a unicorn backpack, nearly bigger than she was. "Hi there," he greeted kindly as he helped his daughter settle near the window. "Sorry if she gets a bit restless." "Long flight." Evelyn nodded politely, still focused on her phone. "I'm Daniel," he said, smiling. "And this is Lily." The little girl waved shyly. Evelyn smiled faintly before returning to her work. Yet something about the way Daniel gently tucked in his daughter's blanket caught her attention. Tender, patient, genuine, a love she rarely witnessed in her corporate world. As the plane climbed through the clouds, Lily quickly fell asleep, resting on her father's arm. Daniel stared quietly out the window, lost in thought. He didn't touch his phone once. An hour later, the cabin lights dimmed. The steady hum of the engines lulled Evelyn into drowsiness. Before she knew it, her head had dropped right onto Daniel's shoulder. When she awoke nearly 2 hours later, she shot upright, embarrassed. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Daniel chuckled softly. "No worries, you looked like you needed it." That's when she noticed something strange. Her phone was plugged into a charger that wasn't hers. "I think this is your power bank," she said. Daniel smiled gently. "Yeah, your battery was about to die. Didn't want you waking up to a dead phone." Evelyn blinked, stunned. Such a small gesture, but one she hadn't received in years. "Thank you," she murmured. From there, conversation began, awkward at first, but slowly easier. She learned that Daniel was a single father, raising Lily alone since losing his wife 3 years earlier in a car accident. "She was my everything," he said softly, glancing at his sleeping daughter. "But Lily keeps me going." For the first time in a long while, Evelyn listened, really listened. No business jargon, no deadlines, just honesty. She shared her own story too, how her job consumed her, how success had made her lonely, and how she hadn't seen her parents in months. For the first time in years, she felt human. When the flight attendant came by with snacks, Daniel ordered a juice box for Lily, but declined food for himself. Evelyn noticed. Later, when he went to the restroom, she quietly asked the attendant to put their meal on her card. When he returned, he found a sandwich and soda waiting on his tray. "I didn't order this," he said. Evelyn smiled. "Consider it a thank you for the charger and for sharing your story." He looked surprised, maybe a bit embarrassed, but nodded gratefully. As the flight continued, they talked about life, raising children, following dreams, surviving loss. Daniel told her about working 2 jobs, at a hardware store and as a delivery driver, to afford Lily's school tuition. "She loves her school," he said. "I'll do anything to keep her there." Evelyn felt a pang deep inside. Here was a man who had lost so much, but still lived with hope and love. When the plane landed, Lily stretched and smiled. "Did you sleep good?" she asked Evelyn sweetly. Evelyn laughed softly. "I did, thanks to your dad's shoulder." As they gathered their bags, Evelyn asked, "Do you have a business card?" Daniel laughed. "I'm afraid I don't carry fancy cards like you." "Then write your number," she said with a smile. "Maybe I can send you something." He hesitated, then scribbled his number on a napkin. "You really don't have to." "I want to," she replied warmly. They parted ways at baggage claim. But as Evelyn watched him lift his daughter's tiny suitcase, something inside her shifted. The next morning in her high-rise office, surrounded by glass and silence, she couldn't stop thinking about Daniel and Lily. That afternoon, she made a phone call. 3 weeks later, Daniel opened an envelope in his mailbox. Inside was a handwritten note and a check. "Dear Daniel, I haven't stopped thinking about that flight. Your kindness and strength deeply moved me. Enclosed is something that might help with Lily's education. Please don't see it as charity. Think of it as an investment in kindness, in people like you who remind the rest of us what matters. With gratitude, Evelyn Carter." The check was for $25,000, enough to cover Lily's schooling for years. Daniel was speechless. Hugging Lily tight, he whispered, "See, sweetheart, there really are good people in this world." Months later, Evelyn stood on stage at a leadership conference in New York. When asked about the greatest lesson of her career, she didn't mention profits or innovation. She told the story of a quiet flight from Chicago and how a single father and his daughter reminded her that success means nothing without compassion. She ended with this: "Sometimes the smallest gestures, offering your shoulder, sharing a charger, or listening, can change more than a moment. They can change a life." The audience rose to their feet, not because she was a CEO, but because she was human again. As she stepped off stage, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you again. Lily just got her first report card, straight A's. She says she wants to be a pilot one day." Evelyn smiled, eyes misty. Maybe kindness doesn't just ripple. Maybe it takes flight. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to show kindness, because you never know whose life it might change. Thank you for watching HOA Chronicles, where we share stories that prove kindness still matters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that inspire hope and healing.